Thank you very much. So I'll just hand over to staff to update us on the annual plan.
Thank you for the adjournment. So where we are at with all the proposed, not proposed anymore, the amendments that have gone through. So the overall average rates increase will be 4.66%, which is up from 4.56%. Average residential rates increase is 4.65, up from 4.55. Business was 4.25, it is now 4.33. Remote rural was 2.66, now 2.67. And the debt's unchanged because there was no capital stuff that went through.
Okay.
But remembering that's still lower than we had set in the LTP.
It is still lower than the LTP.
Significantly.
LTP was 4.97.
Yep.
Our draft was 4.96.
Okay.
We had made capital changes. Are we sure?
All the mayor's recommendations, right, were already built into the
They were already
4.56.
costed in.
So it's only the proposed amendments that have changed this.
Thank you very much, and appreciate you doing that work. So now we move on to the resolutions. Oh, sorry. The first thing that I'm going to do is to resume standing orders. Seconded by Andrew Turner. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. And then I will move on to the adoption of attachments B to H and the other elements of that resolution. And so this is the debate on the annual plan. So I'll move that.
Sorry, it's not yet there.
It's not?
No. We're just adopting the attachments.
Sorry, we're just adopting the attachments. I apologise. So I'll move that, seconded by Deputy Mayor Andrew Turner.
Sorry, can I just ask?
Yeah, can you just slow it down a fraction?
Yeah.
So it's so which ones, to be very, very clear, are we adopting?
We're adopting the attachments. The
So what-
summary
so-
of the. Okay, if I need to read each one out. to
No.
you.
Just
We-
sorry. I'm
It's
not trying to be difficult. What I was asking is, it's got the points like the numbers 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
7. Which points are we voting on?
We're voting on points 4 to 10. 4 to 10.
Yeah. So it's the adoption of the rates increase.
It's the adoption of attachments B to H.
Which is the
4 to 10.
Yeah. If you just scroll up, Sam, right to the top one. So let's just be very clear what we've changed here, okay, from the original one. So, of course, what we've actually put in here is your new rates number. So your attachments had some of the old numbers, so they will be updated according to that, but that's what's been changed in the meeting.
So if someone wants to vote against the rates increase, they vote against.
4.
4.
Just the summary.
It's only it's only the summary. It's not. These are. We're not. You are still going to. We're going to. It is the So the next set of recommendations are 11 to 13, which is the submissions information management sign off, and then we will deal with recommendation 14.
Which is the adoption.
Sorry, I thought everyone had this. And so there'll be an opportunity for everyone to debate the annual plan at recommendation 14.
Is it possible, Sam, to see, because I think the numbers are different now, aren't they?
It's number 17, where's the
Yeah,
rates
but that-
adoption.
Yeah, but that's
So it's page 34.
14's another one, is another one.
Oh,
So-
right, okay.
Yep.
So they haven't changed.
No.
And then so that's the adoption of the annual plan comprising the information and underlying documents adopted by the council at the meeting originally in February, as amended by resolutions 3 to 10 above and attachments C to H. Sorry?
No, it's a question I was asking Sam.
So, so is everyone clear what we're doing?
No.
Okay. So,
So are you going to put
So-
them separate, or are you going to put them just all together?
can you help me out, please? If councillors want to vote against the rates increase, which I'm being told that people do, then that is not this set of recommendations. It is
Correct.
it is
14.
item
17.
eh?
17.
17 is the setting of the rates, right?
This is just the schedules. 14's adopting the actual plan. Yep.
We've already been through the detailed amendments and the mayor's recommendations, so I'm not going to put those again,
Correct.
other than there will be a vote on the adoption of the annual plan.
Which is recommendation 14.
So all of the amendments, you know, the deferral of the implementation of the water charge, everything, that's all in there as well. So that's all covered in 14.
So 14 adopts.
All right? We don't get to put the vote again on things that we've already voted on, other than the generic overarching vote for each of them. So the adoption of attachments B to H, recommendations 4 to 10, it's been moved and seconded. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. So just put up your hand for no.
Against all of them. Yep.
Against all of them. So no rates remission policy, no. Yeah. No.
If you want to get technical about it, it's like it's covered up there with the voting thing. But you know, like 5 and 6 is the capital program, the changes to the capital program, the changes to the OPEX budget. So
Okay.
you know, I don't want to hold it up
That's
time
fine.
long that it needs to.
Okay,
But
so that's so against is Goff, Johansson, Chu, and McDonald.
it's just they fundamentally make it up how we get to
Yeah.
14.
Okay,
So I'm not trying to be difficult. It's just
that's
trying to be
carried.
consistent.
Then we'll move to recommendations 11 to 13. That's been moved by myself, seconded by Andrew Turner. Put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we move to the debate and adoption of the annual plan. So I thought that I would just kick this off by simply reflecting on where we began with this annual plan, and that was to reflect on it being year 2 of our long-term plan, which we went through a very detailed and systematic analysis of all aspects of our long-term plan, and we put that through in a COVID-constrained environment. And so the fact that we were in a COVID-constrained environment was already identified. And then, of course, we had the extension of the lockdowns in China impacting on supply. We had the impact of the war in the Ukraine, coupled with, actually resulting in significant volatility in commodity prices. And these are impacting on our residents, and they're impacting on the council as well. So we've got supply chain issues, we've got cost escalation, and we've got skills shortages. That's happening across the globe, and we are no exception. Locally, we are suffering from the fallout of the extensive damage to the wastewater treatment plant following the fire in November last year. And I think this has had significant flow-on effects to the local community, which is having to live with that stench that the continued operation of the plant and the rotting biomass and the oxidation ponds is causing. The remedial work is well underway, but it isn't an impact so much on this plan because of the insurance, but there are huge issues that we need to address, not just in terms of that infrastructure, but in terms of the infrastructure that supports the smooth running of a city. In addition to the to these issues, we've looked at how we can deliver our core services well in a time of constraint and manage rates affordability. I have to say I was surprised that the number was 4.66%. It could have been significantly more. I think if we'd deferred the excess water charges, it would have tipped over the 5% longer than we have done. Colleagues have mentioned the resident survey, which has showed that overall satisfaction in the council has fallen. And I think we're all disappointed at the decline, but I know that everyone around this table is committed to addressing the issues raised by our residents, and we've tried to address as much of that as we can in a light touch annual plan amendment as we have done. The survey results show strong satisfaction with areas where there is personal contact, including our call centre, our face-to-face interactions at service centres, our libraries, our gardens and parks. This is where we do well, but the overall decline demonstrates that the quality of our water and the condition of our roads, footpaths and other infrastructure matter to our residents, and we need to continue to focus on these. It is also very clear to me, having read the details of it, that our residents are still highly disappointed with the chlorination of the drinking water. And I think it's really important that we listen to and work with our community. That's why communications are key, and we need to up the ante on the way that we communicate in what has become a far more contestable environment for basic facts. And you know, we're also not meeting our residents' expectations on how we engage the wider community in decision making. At the same time, and you know, councillors have different perspectives around the table, and how people express those perspectives often means that there are different messages that are coming out of the council, and it can be incredibly confusing. In my role as the mayor, I haven't had the luxury of representing my personal opinion on a number of issues. That changes on the 8th of October. And I think the reality is that a lot of people think there are things we can do, which we can't do, and think that we are able to influence things that we can't influence because of the Resource Management Act, or because there are issues that simply are beyond our ability to address. So we have used this as an opportunity to update the second year of our long-term plan, and that is what we intended to do with a light touch at the beginning of the process, and that is where we conclude. So I'll hand over to anyone else who'd like to debate this subject. No? Okay. Well, I'll go around the table, and if people want to. Andrew?
Thank you, and I'm going to keep this reasonably brief. I'm pleased to see that the proposed rates rise after the changes made today is still lower than the rates increase that we signalled in the long-term plan. And in the current situation with cost escalations and other tensions around COVID and the war in the Ukraine and other matters that we refer to regularly, is actually quite an achievement, I think. So I'd like to thank staff and actually compliment staff on the process that we've gone through over a period of several months. And it's a process that's delivered, in my view, a balanced result, which we've largely arrived at as the result of a good and well-led and well-informed process. I was largely comfortable with the draft, but it's right that we would make changes in response to submissions from the community. And it's always good when somebody makes a submission, they write their submission, they come along and speak to it, they see a response to that, or they get questioned on it when they come here into the council chamber, and then that submission results in a change, either by way of the mayor's recommendations or by way of an amendment. And we've seen both of those instruments play out today in a very open and transparent way in this meeting. And the community member that made the submission can see their submission been responded to. They can hear the debate on the matter. They can see who votes in favour, who supports it, and they can see who votes against, who doesn't support it. and can see the matter they raised or the change that they requested either adopted or rejected. And that's good. So I'm pleased with some of the changes that have been made in response to those community submissions. Ones of particular interest and importance to me are reinstating that $10,000 worth of funding that allows the levels of service at the Akaroa Museum to be delivered, adding the capital funding that allows the Governor's Bay Jetty project to confidently proceed and be completed in true collaboration and partnership with that community, and deferring the implementation of the high user water charges for 3 months to allow communications to be completed and so that we're fully confident in this before we go live. Finding the balance in setting affordable and reasonable rates, setting an affordable and a deliverable capital programme, and setting levels of service that meet the expectations of the community is always going to be difficult, particularly in trying times. And we've had more than our fair share of those over the years. In this annual plan we've been building on and making small changes to the particularly good piece of work that we did in developing and setting the long-term plan last year. Now, this will be my last annual plan, and that does cause me to reflect, and there'll be plenty of time for this later as well, on how we've come in the time since the first annual plan I was involved in 2014. The concept of savings to be found, the significant cost overruns, capital programs that were not designed to be deliverable. We've done a heap of work since then, and it's good.
Thanks. Mike?
I don't need to talk, well, at least some can say it's something stupid.
James?
Well, look, I'll try and keep this relatively brief, but, Christchurch, in my view, it is an amazing place in the world, and we're so lucky to live here. But I don't think that we can be so naive to think that the uncertainty and possibly grim outlook that's on the horizon globally is going to bypass us. So I don't need to go through all the items that we've discussed and voted on today or through the workshops. There's been an enormous amount of work done there. Won some votes through that, lost some votes through that. I think the crux of what I want to say really, though, is that I think you've had a front row seat with the issue, with the stadium. The Mayor's mentioned around the supply chain disruptions, COVID, commodity price increases, labour shortages, interest rates climbing, inflation at record highs. Now's the time for the far smarter spending and less borrowing, and I'm not seeing that. I don't know if that imperative has got through to the council collectively. If we're going from a draft annual plan of 4.59% average rates increase and upping that to 4.66%, that trajectory is just completely the wrong way. And I think that things are going to get a hell of a lot tougher, and how we respond to that today and at these stages is going to prepare us, will either adequately prepare us for dealing with those challenges well or not so well. So I think that the trajectory has gone the wrong way. I think that we've got the wrong priorities, and I think we need to work far harder on reprioritising things, and I don't think that we've got that balance right. So I don't support this annual plan, but before I completely close off on a negative note like that, I just did want to acknowledge both Leanne and Andrew for the incredible service that you've given to this city. It's greatly appreciated. To Dawn and all the staff in this organisation, you've done an incredible amount of work on this, and it's most certainly appreciated from me. So I won't be supporting the annual plan, but credit to you.
Jimmy?
Thank you. Yeah, and we are all aware this year annual plan is we follow review and amendment of the last year long-term plan. That's the second year long-term plan, and also because like the Mayor she mentioned earlier, actually over the past year, this environment has a significant change because Ukraine war caused the escalation, and also the kind of supply chain, bigger kind of the problem, etc. But I'm still very happy. We follow the officers. They take the kind of prudent, in the sustainable way. So all those figure we can see is under the proper management. It's not outside those kind of red light, etc. particularly if we compare the draft annual plan, 4.96, but now, eventually the final one is 4.66, I think we should be very proud to face all those audience. But regarding to the, today we review lots of those issues, but particularly I still would like to emphasize in response, to those the community residents. They make a submission to us. We have to, have a response. But the local council, I'm quite happy regarding to the Templeton Playground, have a further conversation with them. The Golden F have updated status. Tree Canopy cover, those one as a high priority, etc. And also the particular the engagement with political concern, community board concern, Mills, Southland, Sparks. So many 73 make submissions. So this one we have a proper response to them. So we should be very proud. Also, this is my last the kind of annual plan since the October 2010, elected as a councillor, So still give me the opportunity for the learning curve. Even this year, I'm 69 years old, but I think it give me very good memory. So thank you, everyone.
Yanni.
Thank you. Just to acknowledge the work and the effort that has gone into the draft annual plan. I guess I just wanted to quote our resident survey that services to improve. Residents were asked to state one service they thought was the most important for council to improve. And roading is once again the most salient topic in respondents' minds, with just over a quarter of all respondents making a negative comment regarding the state of the roads. And this has increased from 22% compared to 12 months ago. Quotes, the roads and footpaths just not up to patch jobs that get washed away in the next rain. And quote, many roads are still rough and have never been attended to since 2011. And when the work is undertaken, it is with maximum inefficiency and maximum cost, no doubt. I'm incredibly disappointed that the amendments that I've put forward to get synergy, to improve efficiency and reduce the costs and get things delivered in our local communities, like in North Linwood, to get some street renewals added to a package of work so that we don't duplicate resources, have been ruled out of order. I'm incredibly disappointed that amendments that respond positively to the submissions that people made, the key messages that our staff told us that people had made, where they want continued improvement of the condition of our assets and infrastructure, especially our transport, and that they're incredibly concerned that in eastern parts of the city, they feel that council is still spending on nice-to-haves while they continuously fight to get investment and feel forgotten about. There is no greater example of that than these photos right here. This shows the $3.4 million that's going to be spent on Gloucester Street on the right, a street that looks actually pretty good. And if you can't call it gold plating, I don't know what you'd call it when you contrast it to the photos of the footpath in Linwood Park that hasn't been fixed for years and years and years, or the potholes in the street, or the curb and channel in North Linwood. Again, amendments put forward to get these streets renewed and to get things fixed in regards to program level budgets that are currently sitting there unallocated, and yet that is ruled out of order. It has got to stop. We have to start fixing the basics that are in our suburbs that have been left for far too long post-earthquake. And that's why I'm incredibly disappointed that our draft annual plan suggested bringing forward $4 million of gold plating in the central city based on delivery timeframes of Te Kaha and the Performing Arts Precinct, but that despite the fact that those timeframes have now been delayed further, we are keeping the revised bring forward programs in our budget for money that I don't think we can spend even if we want to in that timeframe. But I don't agree with this draft annual plan. I don't believe it addresses the concern from the majority of submitters. And just to conclude, with the sheer frustration of amendments being ruled out of order, which I can see no valid reason for, but the feedback from our residents was, well, some submitters acknowledge that we've made good changes since last year. Others feel that the documentation we provide is still hard and cumbersome to navigate, which makes it hard for them to provide us with meaningful feedback. The message was clear, that if we want our residents to engage, they want us to enable them to do so in an informed and meaningful way.
Thank you, Melanie.
I'm glad I rushed back for this debate. It's right of councillors to forward or bring forward amendments in response to the submissions that we've received on the annual plan. I think this shows that we do listen and that residents can make their voice heard, and we will act on it. And I do actually think our priorities are generally in the right direction. We've been supporting the environment by working towards increasing waterway quality and compliance. We've been working towards biodiversity and increasing this through Coronation Reserve funding, reducing the fire risk there, responding to the community in that area, and encouraging volunteers to work in that space, supporting other volunteer work such as the Governor's Bay Jetty, and it makes sense in terms of the cost of that project. We have been increasing access to services. Look at the library's holding fee that we've reduced, concession and the community services card. I think that's really important to actually increasing access to people who are disabled, and I'm surprised that some councillors didn't support that amendment. There are councillors here that say that they listen, but they don't always do what they say. The disability one is one example. Another is councillors claiming they want lower rates but supporting an increase by deferring water charging. And there's also councillors that claim that they would like far smarter spending and less borrowing, but we will see whether that's true on the 14th of July.
Catherine, Sam, Anne.
Firstly, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge you, Leanne, and the way that in your recommendations you've acknowledged the history of a lot of where we're at here. You've also talked about the challenges that we've all faced, and you've done it in a way that's been very understandable and real. And I think that one of the big challenges that we face is to make sure that we're hearing from our communities that don't know how to engage with council. And I'm very supportive of what we're doing with the annual plan, and I will be voting for it. But I'd like to take the moment to just make a plea that we do everything we can to change the way we speak, the language we use, the way we engage, so that those who have got a voice and want to be involved know how to get involved and know how to have their voice heard. So we've got big pockets of our communities that don't know how to get involved in this whole process of co-creating our future as a city. And we all know that that's not good enough, and it's really great that we have a engagement working group now that is actually working hard with staff to address those issues. And I'm hopeful that next LTP, which I won't be part of, will have a much greater diversity of voices being brought to the decision making. So this is your last annual plan, Leanne, and us too, but we really want to thank you for the work you've done to hold this together, to bring us together. Also want to really acknowledge the huge amount of work staff have done. And I am sorry that at times it feels as if we don't respect that work, but I know that many of us do, and we're very deeply appreciative, as many of our residents are as well. So I'm very happy to be supportive of this annual plan and vote for it to be adopted.
Phil.
Thank you, Leanne. I too would like to thank staff. The next time one staff member tells me this is going to be a light annual plan, I may look past them with a. Going forward, though, no, seriously, things are going to be tough going forward, and we are going into uncharted financial territory for some, if not all of us, as councillors, because some of us haven't been here before. I think things are going to be bloody tough. So, but I really feel we should have had more appetite to look outside the box for savings or different ways of doing things. But it is what it is, and we'll see how it all washes out in the end.
Jake, you're sitting there behind your screen there.
Yeah. Not really too much I wanted to say. I wasn't going to say anything, and then I thought I might use the opportunity to highlight a really small win that hasn't been covered off today, and that's the red bin, actually the 3-bin system for Atlas Quarter, who are one of the few developments who can take advantage of the fact that we now won't be double charging them for a service they provide themselves. But in the future, and as our CBD densifies and fills out with even more people and more of the type of housing we want to see people living in, they won't run into the same issues that the residents of Atlas Quarter have had to run into. And while it's always nice to see them, I remembered them saying at the time, I think this was their third or even fourth visit, and they didn't want to come back next year, and now they absolutely will not have to. So that's all from me.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, I think there was a presentation or slide right at the start that pointed out the uncertain times we're in yet again in Christchurch, following COVID and what's going on globally with the economy. It's pretty obvious it's quite a false economy right now, because the average interest rate's gone up by $1,000 a month. Rates are about to go up as well, but the interest rate's gone up by $1,000 a month, and that's to curb spending, but the spending wasn't out of control. The spending had changed. It's other pressures that are causing inflation, mainly supply chain, and just as a quick point to how fake things are, in 2008 when oil peaked last time, it was $140 a barrel and petrol was $2.11 a litre. It's now $109 a barrel and it's $3 a litre. So we're getting reamed. And it's no surprise that shipping's just out of control, and they're cartels, and they're not going to bring back the amount of capacity there was. So this is here for the long haul, which leads me to my point, is that the smarter spending, and thanks for raising it, Melanie, because it is an important issue that we've missed off this time. The smarter spending we should be looking at as the council is around what we do spend our money on. We have to be really careful that it has a return and a value to the city, and just spending on nice to haves that don't necessarily have a reasonable return to the city might need to be should have been put on hold in favour of something we all know that's coming next month, which has got an overwhelming response from the public too. So we've kind of gone into this annual plan, I think, a little bit blind, knowing that was sitting over there. And yes, it's a huge number. None of us deny that. But it's the value of that huge number to the city versus all the other things we spend money on at a time when the supply chain is constrained. There is a limited amount of steel. There's a limited amount of workers. So you've got to be really wise where you put them. And just having been through a pandemic, we're still partly in it, and having a government that spends $100 million a day towards the pandemic but doesn't prioritise health just beggars belief. That should have been where all the first infrastructure spends were, and there's still a number of projects that haven't seen the light of day at every single health board across this country. That's a catastrophe in itself. So that's a great example of not smart spending, and this council needs to get better at its smart spending. And next month, yes, will be a test to that based on what the public tell us.
Tim.
Thank you. Look, first of all, I'd like to thank the submitters for coming and making themselves heard, but also putting in with their submissions through writing. I'd also like to commend the staff for going into this process and leading into an election. It was always going to be interesting, and that's just the life we live. Just a few things. Really interestingly, with regards to interest rates, 40 years ago, a home loan interest rate was 28%. So things do keep moving. It doesn't stay still. So I think you've always got to be ready for that blind side, which never really is a blind side. It just takes some time to come through. I think this annual plan and what we've come up with regards to the rates is a good balance. Everybody knows when they're doing with their own home wants and needs, you've got to balance. You can only spend so much, but you can't get everything you want. So I think that this has achieved a lot of what was wanted, and we will have to look in the future of what we can deliver in the coming years. And we've got some really big issues coming up, one in particular which Aaron mentioned. So it's going to be interesting, but we do have an obligation to move this city forward. And as Councillor Goff said, it is an amazing city we live in. Our young people who are old enough to live through or be here and remember the earthquake have been through so much more than any of us actually have been in our youth and our childhood. So I think that's got to be remembered, and what we've got to try and achieve for them as they go forward and what we leave for them. And I think this is part of that journey. So thank you.
Sarah.
Yeah, it's fair to say that there are several decisions today that I really strongly disagree with. And I had been contemplating voting against the entire annual plan because of it for the first time in my role as a councillor. Feel very strongly about them. But I'm also a very strong believer in the democratic process. And as elected representatives from across the city, we have put forward or not amendments. They have been won or lost on a democratic vote for a variety of reasons. And so I find myself in the position of voting for an annual plan where there are some key things that I really don't like. I like a lot about this annual plan. It's mostly what we did in the LTP, and I liked that. And so I have to look at the positive side there. And I'm not one to vote against my principal decision on the democratic process just for the sake of it. So I find myself, in the end, voting in favour of a couple of things being adopted that I don't like. Couple of comments on other comments that have been made. One on the trajectory. It was really cool that we got down to 4.56. And yes, it's disappointing that we've gone up a bit to 4.56. 4.66, but there was a potential for an additional 0.42, and that would have taken us over the 5%. And so for those who voted in favour of the 0.42 to then say that they didn't like the trajectory we were going in is a little hypocritical. So let's do smart spending on the 14th. Let's look at the benefit cost ratio. It's really clearly there. Look at what's good for the city in that place. And let's think about our role in the dissatisfaction that people have around the decision-making table, because that's the key area that people want us to focus on. It's how do we make decisions as a council around this table? How do we talk about each other? How do we talk about the decisions we're being made? And how do we keep an open mind until the decision is made? Because one thing that people say is they don't like us being predetermined. What's the point in submitting? You already know what you're going to say. And when we as councillors come out during a consultation and tell everyone how we're going to vote and what we think, that means that a lot of people think we're predetermined, there's no point in submitting, and they don't think that we're making good decisions. Thank you very much.
Pauline.
Look, it was great to see a lot of submissions on our environment. Great to see a lot of submissions on our environment, our biodiversity projects, and largely from organised community groups that are working really hard in this space. In the plan today, I was disappointed the tree canopy amendment failed, because that to me would have meant funding available to commence that project post-election. So I hope we can still find that. But as I said, it's always great to hear from residents and groups, reaffirming the amount of willing participants helping in this fantastic city that we have. The Governor's Bay jetty is just one fine example. And another fine example is the Edgware Pool Group. And I have to go there, I have to talk about this, because for me this is a really great day. Along with the Mayor, I really respect community self-determination, and we must empower viable projects. The Edgware Pool is a viable project driven by strong capability. The baton has been passed within this group many times. Some have moved away, some have passed away, and still the vision and drive is strong. They have proven succession planning over 16 years. It's time for this, and the council $3 million contribution represents 75% of the capital cost for 0.01% rate impact. That's an incredible boost in vote of confidence on this project. This group has protected and retained green space within an intensified neighbourhood by purchasing and holding the land in 2016, and that is fortuitous. The project fits beautifully with our climate change strategy and through the concept of localism. It sits on a transport hub, the Papanui Parallel Cycleway, and 3 bus routes, and it will add to what is now a vibrant hub of the Edgware village. The funding will go a long way to healing an injustice that is felt strongly to this day. It's in the DNA. It'll help a lot. And it's time for this pool to come to fruition. It's time for this community to realise their vision, and time for the children to once again have an outdoor summer community pool to share and enjoy with their families, neighbours, wider community, and to be able to swim there frequently enough to become competent in the water and reduce the drowning rate. So over 16 years, it shows us that patience is a virtue. The timing's right. I'd like to thank councillors around the table for their support, and particularly Mike Davidson, who's worked really hard with me on this, and for the staff for the incredible amount of work on the annual plan, which was supposed to be a tweak but seems much bigger somehow. The 4.66 is amazing, especially considering the challenges of these times. Phew. And thank you, Leanne, for getting us through this by 5 p.m. today. Well done.
Almost.
Not quite there yet.
I'm being
Celeste.
optimistic.
She wasn't going to speak, but why not? I think I'm just sort of repeating what everyone else has said. We're living in difficult times, and things are only going to get harder. And we've heard from the community they want us to strike a balance between keeping rates affordable, but also focusing on getting sort of the basic infrastructure right. This includes investing in transport infrastructure in the east, and we've also heard from people that they want bold action on climate change, which includes prioritising investment in areas that will mitigate the impacts of extreme weather events in our community. We're going to be making some other significant decisions this week, so it's important not to lose sight of what the community has asked us to focus on, which is, once again, prioritising community wellbeing, climate action and keeping rates affordable. So I'll be interested to see if those that say they are in favour of those things follow through with the votes later this week.
Thank you. Right. Just to round off the debate, Mike, I called you earlier on. I'm sorry. We agreed that we would take the calls around the table.
This week, if he wants to contribute.
Sorry?
Oh.
Look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We agreed. I called you and you said that you weren't going to take the call then. I just want to conclude by just referencing what Councillor Galloway said, actually, and also to acknowledge you. This is your last annual plan. You made the point about developing different ways to engage with the community so many more voices are heard when decisions are being made. And I think that that is absolutely the role of any council. It is so easy to get a campaign going on a single issue. That's easy. That's not even that's a given. It's harder to have an intelligent, in-depth debate about the challenges we face as a city, as a nation, and as a planet. And it's really hard to have an intelligent debate about the kinds of choices that we are confronted with and how we set the priorities. And these are huge issues. There's a generation of young people out there who say ours is the generation who has failed them before they were even old enough to vote, let alone sit at this table making the decisions themselves. It's vital that the diversity of thinking that's required to deal with the complexity, the wicked problems that we've had to take on now, it's vital that that diversity is brought to the table. Our city is actually enriched when we debate the issues that truly matter. So thank you very much for those that have contributed to this debate, and we'll move to the voting, and I'll get the adoption of the annual plan recommendation to be put as a division. Thank you.
So for number 14, the Mayor.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Councillor Chen.
Yes.
Councillor Chu. No. Councillor Coker. Yes. Councillor Cotter. Aye. Councillor Donovan.
Yes.
Councillor Davidson. Councillor Galloway.
Yes.
Councillor Goff.
No.
Councillor Johansson. No. Councillor Keown. No. Councillor MacDonald,
No.
Councillor Major, Councillor McLennan,
Yes.
Councillor Scandrett,
Yes.
and Councillor Templeton.
That is, oh,
11 for and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 against.
thank you, that's carried. Now we move on to the CFO authorisations. It's moved by myself, seconded the Deputy Mayor. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we move to the setting of the rates. So I'll presumably, do people want the rates put separately or just put the lot? Put the lot.
We've probably, the point's been made, so I wouldn't worry too much.
There will be some councillors that usually vote against one of the targeted rates. If you want to do that, can you just note that to Sam? Right, okay, thank you. So I'll put that motion, or is it easier, do you want to do a division?
No, I'm just watching if people need to raise any.
Do you want a division on it?
No,
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no.
I'm against 17M.
Okay, and 17M noted Mike Davidson and Sarah Templeton, and the votes against are
Can we see who voted against?
yeah, Goff,
Can do, yeah.
Goff, Johansson,
Except for Jay.
Chu, McDonald, Kewen, and Major.
Except for J, which is the cathedral, isn't it? M, sorry, M. Yeah. Yeah.
So Goff, Johansson,
What's
Chew, McDonald, and Major.
Sarah, what was that?
And Kewen.
And Kewen.
Oh.
Against everything but N.
So
we voted.
Okay.
Voted.
So all right. So now we move on to
vote against the rest.
The oh no, because that's the
No.
date instalments.
You've done 17 to 20, so
That's all of them.
that's all of them.
Yeah.
Yep. Hang on.
Sarah, we voted for M against the rest. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yes.
Kia whakaerea te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai. Homie, hui, tai, kie. Thank you all very much. I declare the meeting closed.